In the beginning of the day, before the sun rises, I go walking down the streets of my neighborhood. And oftentimes I come across a woman and walking her dog, and the dog starts to bark at me, and the woman will inevitably say, "I'm so sorry." And I say, "Please, don't apologize. What your dog is saying is, I don't know who or what your purposes are, but get any closer and I will rip out your throat." This is what dogs should do. They're guardians. We had a dog whose name was Tom. Tom was sired by Shadrack, grand champion American Kennel Club boxer division of both America and Canada. Shadrack and his brother Abednego, between the two of them, sired 120 champion dogs. Poor Tom was not one of them. He did not have the right markings for a show dog. So my father bought him, and we got him. He was a beautiful brindle. He didn't have his ears clipped. He was big and strong, but he wasn't my guardian. He was my best friend. I got him in second grade, and I loved him. I told him all my secrets. I cried to him when I ran away. He would accompany me. Well, in third grade, we moved to Houston, Texas, and my dad decided to buy some land out in the country. This is back in 1972, so we bought 2 acres off of North Eldridge and West Little York. Back then it was called Addicks Fairbanks Road. And we had a big backyard with a chain link fence, and then behind that was the pasture and the horses and such. Well, my brother bought a goat, a milking goat. That's a whole nother story. But this nanny goat was a pretty mean one. And she and Tom would get at it. They would fight through the chain link fence, and she would butt the chain link fence, and Tom would bark and sometimes she would get her horns stuck in the chain link fence, and someone would have to go out there and undo her and tell Tom to go away. Well, one day someone left the gate open, and we found Tom over the goat's dead body with blood dripping down from his iron jaws. My father horsewhipped to Tom. Now, before you judge, remember the law of the farm: animals don't eat animals. In ninth grade, we moved to Jakarta, Indonesia, across the world, and this time we lived in a very big house, but it was a very small yard, and poor Tom had to live outdoors with the servants. This house had a 12-foot wall with glass in the concrete and barbed wire, and we were a house in a developing neighborhood. So the lot next to us was filled with poor folk living kind of in a shanty town. Not scary poor folk, but poor folk nonetheless. And Indonesia is just a place where you have to have high security because you have such wealth and poverty. And so we had a night guard who was a retired police sergeant who would spend the night sitting in a chair and walking around. And I love the memory of him sitting there with Tom by his side, sitting there. Well, one day someone left the gate open, and Tom went out and killed the neighbor's goat. Now, the Indonesians are most polite and generous and good folk until they're not. And so my father wanted to make sure that we covered this, so he went and bought this dead goat from the neighbors for something like 4 or 5 times the value of the goat. And then, of course, he gave them the goat and said, "Please have a barbecue for the neighborhood." But this time he did not whip Tom. And I like to imagine uh, some some strangers coming into the neighborhood, robbers casing the joint, and they come to one of our neighbors and they say, "That dog there is it looks kind of mean. Is it really a mean dog?" And the guy goes, "Oh, let me tell you a story."